the story has so many horrific details and so many heart-wrenching moments, but you have now taken all of that and you're in a place today where you're able to communicate it. You're able to tell that story. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm fighting back tears just listening to it. We've got a great video for you today, meeting with Sally Allen, a woman with an incredible story that I can't wait for you to hear. Before we get into it, I just want to remind you that the vision of GrowFrom is to help connect you with the resources to help you grow. So wherever you are in life, if you're looking for ways to take the next step and step into a new adventure, whether it's connecting you with Sally or one of the other coaches we've had on our podcast or anyone else, feel free to reach out to me. Send me an email, send me a message. I'm kevin@growfrom.com, and I'd love to help you out. Also, don't forget to check out the GrowFrom app. It's a great tool for helping you stay on top of your goals and stay focused on a daily basis. So without further ado, let's dive into this and see and hear Sally's amazing story. Hello and welcome to the GrowFrom podcast, where we spotlight individuals dedicated to fostering personal and professional growth. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Sally Allen, a certified executive mindset coach, leadership development strategist, author, podcaster, and speaker. Sally's remarkable ability to understand and connect people is deeply influenced by her own transformative journey and her faith. Sally's past was marked by profound challenges, including a toxic upbringing, being forced into an arranged marriage, and more. Despite these significant adversities, Sally found resilience and strength through her faith, transforming her pain into a powerful platform for advocacy and coaching. And Sally's heart for serving globally has led her on volunteer missions across the globe, including countries like Peru, Ireland, Mexico, Poland, Brazil, and Cambodia. And so we are so excited to talk with you today, Sally. And it's great having this conversation. We talked earlier about what you've been through and what you've done, and you've even shared with me the incredible book and journey that you've been on. So I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. I so appreciate you having me on your podcast. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to see where our conversation will go. As you know, this is not scripted or anything. So whatever you want me to talk about, you just let me know. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Well, I think the most important thing for us to start off with is the background. And you've got an entire book. You've put together an entire video explaining your entire story, which is incredible. For any of you, just like the cliff notes, Sally's been on an incredible journey. That's what's brought her here today. She has a book, she has a podcast out, she has a video out for it. Watch it. But maybe give us the cliff notes of that journey, Sally, and explain to us how you got here today.
So I grew up in South America, in a little country called Guyana. And my father passed when I was really young. My mother passed when I was 12. My mother was an alcoholic, and turned out that, different people struggle different ways. She had her demons that she struggled with, and I was part of that story from the time I was born to 12 years old. I remember my first story, my first memory was my mom dropping me off in kindergarten and forgetting to pick me up. And it was that day I realized that I'm on my own and I needed to take care of my mom. Now, I was 6 years old. I think my mindset and my resiliency started to build that day when I realized that I was a caregiver and there was no one giving care to me. So that has been my mindset and the trajectory of my life starting then. Mom passed when I was 12. I lived with some family members, and it was one abuse from the other. There was sexual abuse there. There was all sorts of abuse. And then when I was 17, that family member married me off to someone in an arranged marriage, someone I've known 3 days before the wedding. He was another alcoholic, very, very abusive. The good thing about that was I came to America. Our country is really poor. So it's nice to leave a third world country and come to a first world country where you stand a chance. And that was the good thing that came out of this. The other good thing that came out was our son. That marriage was very abusive. But Kevin, I feel sometimes when you are in an environment from birth, you don't know any better because
Mm-hmm.
you're with the same people, you're in the same environment, and you haven't experienced anything else. And that was my story from, from birth to even when my son was born. But when he was 4 years old, it was a pivotal moment in my life that really changed me and made me realize that I am in some deep crap and I need to get out of it. And that was, it was 3 a.m. at the normal when my ex-husband would come home, he would get drunk, and he would want to dance and do things like that. But this night, I was just so tired of it. I was tired of his abuse, dragging me out of bed at 3 a.m. to dance. Like, who does that? And I was so mad. And for the first time, I did something physically that I've never done before. I pushed him, and he fell into the wall. And he crashed so hard. I thought he would pass out, but when I looked at him, I just knew that night either I fight or I was going to die because he came at me with such rage, and I didn't know what was happening. But the next thing I knew, I was on the floor and he was strangling me, and I was passing out. And I felt my son grabbing a remote control and hitting him and saying, "You need to leave my mommy alone." So I wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't allowed to go back to school or anything like that. So I also remember my son saying, this was another pivotal moment, "Mommy, we need to take a cab and leave." And it just hit me that I had no freedom and I couldn't do anything for myself. So, his father let up a little bit and just to backhand our son, and he flew across the room. And that was this pivotal moment in my life that I turned my head and looked at that little boy, and he was curled up in a ball, 4 years old. And he wasn't screaming or crying out of fear. There was just defeat in his eyes. And he was just whimpering. And I knew right then that I had to leave. One, I had to leave. And two, this little boy should not take care of me. And those were some of the most resilient thoughts I'd had. And, a year later, I planned it all, Kevin. And a year later, I was out of there. I took my son and we ran. We ran for our lives. And there was a lot that happened after that, including his father trying to throw me on the train tracks to kill me. There's a lot that happened after that. But I think that one pivotal moment in my life changed the trajectory and made me who I am today.
And I think one of the things that I absolutely loved about your story, and I loved about where you're at right now, I mean, the story has so many horrific details and so many heart-wrenching moments, but you have now taken all of that and you're in a place today where you're able to communicate it, you're able to tell that story. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm fighting back tears just listening to it. I mean, you having lived it have to have so much strength to be able to communicate that today. But now you've turned that into a platform where you're helping other people as well. And can you just talk about today what that looks like, how you're taking all of these experiences and turning them into something that's impacting the world?
Yeah. One of the things I realized, as you look back in your life and looking back how things happened and how they turned out, one of the things I've done all of my life and I didn't realize it was in my subconscious was that when I was being abused in any form of abuse that happened to me, I would always say to myself, I will never treat anyone this way. And I feel that that was actually God protecting me because I forgot to tell you, I met God when I was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like He's always been in here and protecting me. And that was a voice in me. I mean, we all experience spirituality differently, but that's how I experienced mine. And I think that was a those were my guiding principles. That's where they were coming from. That I never want anybody to feel those feelings I'm feeling, Kevin. And that tied into me loving to volunteer. I
Mm.
love to volunteer, and you mentioned that when you introduced me that I would go across the globe to volunteer and to help people, and that translate into my coaching also. I thought that I would do what I was up until 2020. I was an HR talent specialist, and I thought I would love that. Back in my former life, I was an executive assistant, but in 2020, I had this epiphany that I love helping people so much, and I've been coaching and mentoring all of my life. Why not turn it into something that would provide for me, but I would have such a passion doing it that it would help so many people. And that's one of the reasons why I do it. It's my heart as a coach is genuinely love to watch people reach their full potential. And I know that they can. And I know regardless of what you're going through, if you change your mindset, that you can get through it. All you have to do is work on changing that mindset constantly, daily. It's like building a muscle, right? I go to the gym every day and I work out and I build, it's a compound effect. And it's the
Hmm.
same way with our mental health and our mind. If we're able to change that and we harness the power of the mind, it's really beautiful and powerful.
And I love that. I mean, there's so much. The whole premise of grow from is that idea that it doesn't matter where you're starting from. That we're all going to grow from. We all can grow, and there's certainly pivotal moments along that growth. And one of the pivotal moments that you shared in your book was the moment that you met a bank executive. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? I love that
Yeah.
moment, and I wanted to ask you more about it.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. My story is so in depth. I we will spend all day talking about it, so I had to go high level. But but there are different pivotal moments in our lives, and I'm glad you brought that up because the first one was with my son and running away. The second pivotal moment of my growth was someone actually being bold and brave to talk to me in such a way that it woke me up, mentally, and it just woke up my senses to say, who are you and who do you want to be? I went for a job interview, and I I grew up very submissive. We grew up with our heads down. We speak when we're spoken to, and you really did not have a voice as women. And I'm sitting there at this job interview, Kevin, and this man, he was from Trinidad. He was on my neck of the woods. He's this tall African American, big built man with a booming voice. And I sat there in my element and what I know, like this, and I'm answering, my name is Sally Ellen, and da, 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 da. And he just said, young lady, look up. And it startled me because it wasn't I've been abused and yelled at, but this was more with authority and something was going to happen. I knew something is happening. And he said, if you want to progress in this country and you want to get anywhere, you need to learn how to speak up and project. And I said, project? Like, what do you mean? I'm thinking a projector. He said, no, you have to speak up and you have to project. And the other thing you need to do is learn how to look people in their eyes. Because, Kevin, I couldn't look people in their eyes. That's one thing we didn't do. My head was always down. And it was so uncomfortable for me. But I got that job at the bank. And I have to tell you, I did that every single day. I would look someone 5 seconds. Maybe I start 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And then before you knew it, it took me 2 years, Kevin. I was able to stare someone up and down without being scared. You might take that for granted, right? You grew up in that culture. But for me, that was such a hard thing and it was such a big accomplishment when I'm able to sit with somebody and look them in the eye and had a conversation with them. All thanks to that one person who kind of took me under his wing for 30 seconds and breathe life into me.
I love that story, and I love that. I've always felt that it's the key to any of our success, and I don't have evidence on this, but it seems right, is other people. You have the moment with your son, you have the moment with the executive, you have the challenging moments with your mom, right? And all of those things that create those moments in our lives. And so today you are that voice for people. You are that person. And can you share maybe a moment that you've been able to have an impact in somebody else's life, or that your voice has shined through for someone else?
Oh my gosh. My coaching, for example, I just love when I see the light bulb go off with my clients. But if I go personal with that, I have mentored many people. And I had one of my mentors talk to me about 6 months ago to say, like, Sally, at the time when you were mentoring me, I couldn't see the light and I couldn't receive what you were saying. But today I have to tell you I'm applying all of that. And now she is a badass executive, and she said, that's because I'm applying what we talked about way back when you were mentoring me. But there are so many different stories, Kevin, I've seen with my clients um, all across the globe that have received the coaching, have applied it, and be like, man, thank you so much today for that.
There's I think there's a when we look at growth, there is a lot of barriers that people can see. You've got the barriers to, you have your family life, you have your work life, you have all of the chores and the things that you have to do after work. And I think there are a lot of excuses for not growing. And in your story, certainly there's even more of those. And it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you didn't benefit from an upbringing that was supportive, educational, empowering, or any of those things, and still managed to find that transformation. And maybe there's two questions in here. Is one is, how did you find the time for your growth? And two, how did you find the motivation, not the motivation, but how did you find, I'm missing the word here, but how did you find that will to grow?
Yeah, um, great question. And you are absolutely right. It takes a lot of willpower to do that. And I'll give you a perfect example of my book and how I did that, and that will tell you a little bit about me. My book took 2 years to write. And part of it because it was so, I went in details in the book. I go high level everywhere else, but in my book, the details are in there. But I was lying in bed one night and I realized it was a year into writing my book that if I don't get up and I don't go and I don't do it, no one's going to tell me to get up and go. Mel Robbins always say, no one's coming to save you.
Hmm.
But you have to come to that realization that I can lay there and be the victim, or I could get up and go. Right? She talked about that 5-second rule, get up and go. And it takes, so I had to change my mindset. One of the things I would do is lay there and find excuses not to get up and do what I need to do. I used to write at 2 a.m. That's when my inspiration would come. And
I know that feeling.
yeah, yeah, at 2 a.m. And so I would lay there and think about, does my head hurt? Does my feet, does my eye hurt? And nothing hurts, Sally, just get up and go. And at the end of the day, Kevin, I feel that you have to come to that conclusion that no one is coming to save you. You just have to get up and go. You know what? You're not going to always feel motivated. I got up this morning and I was not motivated to get to the gym, but I put one leg in front of the other and go because it's a mental thing, but it's also a physical thing, right? You have to get up and you have to physically walk to where you need to go and do what you need to do. So how badly do I want it? I tell people you have to think about your why, and your why has to be so big that it makes you want to cry. So how badly do you want it? For me, my motivation was I was doing speaking engagements around the valley in Las Vegas. And women were saying to me, Sally, you should write your book because other women will benefit from it. And that was my why. That how many women are waiting for a story like this to say, like, man, if you can do it, Sally, I can do it. Because I am nothing special. So if I can do it and they can do it and I'm holding this back and not giving them this gift. So that kept me going. You have to find what your why is. You have to realize that no one's coming to save you. You have to physically get up and go and do whatever helps you, whether it's your music, whether it's praying, whether it's meditation, whatever it takes. Just do it and go. And I've incorporated that in my life. Like right now, when I wake up at 6 a.m., 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. is Sally's time. I work out, I go to the gym, I get into routines. Routines are important to help to, you know, to stay on track with what you want to do, and also habit stacking. I've have 3 hours in the morning for me, but it was from habit stacking, one habit from the other, keep stacking, and I keep extending that time where it's now like, man, I love my 3 hours because I've done habit stacking for years, and no one gets in between. I don't even look at my phone from 6 to 9 because of that habit stacking. And that is very powerful when you're able to master your mind and start doing that.
So you're in a place right now, and I one of the things I loved about our first meeting and every meeting since is, um, and this we could talk about your faith as well, but your story has given you a strong sense of responsibility in terms of what you're going to do for the broader community, in terms of the impact that you're going to have. Can you talk about what motivates you? Is it that sense of responsibility that motivates you, and where does your faith play into that?
My faith is very important to me. I have I will tell that little story so that you understand and the audience understand how important my faith is. When I was young, I tried to take my life. I was 8 years old when I tried to take a bunch of pills, and I felt that God kept me alive for such a time of this. Obviously, I did not pass, but I tried a second time when He sent somebody at my gate to tell me that He loves me and gave me a little Bible to read. And Jesus became my friend since I was 8 years old. I didn't understand any of it. But throughout my life, I've seen miracles and I've seen how He has shown me different things. One of the things that when mindset coaching is track record is important. You have to look back at your track record and what you've accomplished and say, man, I've done that. I've seen God
Mm-hmm.
come through. I'm able to do this. And that's where my faith plays in when it comes to, I look back, I was able to leave and run away, something I thought I could never do. I was able to publish a book. I'm able to look people in the eye, which is a big deal for me, right? I was able to start a podcast. Um, I am coaching globally. I never thought these were things I could do. So when I look at the next big thing, Kevin, that I'm going to do, my faith has a big play big into it because I look back at I have done all these things, and I know if I feel in my heart this is what I'm called to do, that I will be able to accomplish it. Here's the second thing. You mentioned this previously. It's all about the who, not the what, and not the how. Because I look at the people I align myself with. When I'm going to do something, I look at who will help me to get to this point. Who are the people in different phases of life? We align ourselves with different people. So we have to look at who are some of the people who's been there, done that, that I could align myself with, that would encourage me and walk that journey with me. So it comes to faith, it comes to the who's, and it just comes to, man, you gotta get your butt out of bed and just do it.
Is there anybody in your life today that's walking that journey, or anybody in your recent time that's you really value their walk with you?
That question cut out. I didn't hear it.
Is there anybody in your life today who's walking that journey with you, or somebody in the recent history that you're like, they're playing a critical role in my journey today?
There are many people who played critical roles in my journey, but one of the groups of people I like to talk about is my personal board of directors. I just did a talk on this. They have been instrumental towards me starting my coaching business. Well, I've had my coaching business for a while. They've been instrumental to me making it a real business and not a hobby. I think it's important that when you're going into something so big, we have these BHAGs, right? These big, hairy, audacious goals that we need the right people. And I call them my personal board of directors because that's what they really are. Big companies have board of directors. It's okay for you to have your own personal board of directors. And that's one of the things I did when I started my business. I had 5 people. And funny, Kevin, my first one was a preacher because mentally and physically and spiritually, I needed to be grounded. So that was
Yeah.
my first person. The second one was a CEO and a strategist. I need someone to help me strategize. And then I had three other people that played different roles. I look at the roles they can play to help me get my business started. So it's important. Now, what we need to realize, and some people don't realize, is that the people we tap into at different different phases of our life are not necessarily the same people we tap into as we move along. Right now, I'm not tapping into those people. They were there for that phase. Right
Right.
now, I have a different group of people that I've tapped into to help me get to the next phase and where I want to go.
And for you, where is that? Where is that next step in the Sally Allen journey?
Uh, so, um, my coaching, I want to say surprisingly, but I shouldn't say surprisingly because my faith has a big play into this. Since I started in 2020, my coaching business has been going really well. It's 100% referral based. I just put a pitch deck together. That's one of the things I'm doing. I've never had to do that. But I just put my pitch deck together, which I'm really excited about. So I am going to start pounding the pavement. I feel like if I've been doing so well without that, how much better I would do with that. Secondly, I am looking to how do I monetize and recurring income? How do I monetize that? So one of the things I'm looking into is uploading courses onto my website. That's the next phase of my business. How do I build out courses? Upload those courses so I can send people there to take, hey, you've coached, you want to go a little bit deeper on crucial conversations, for example, you can go on my website and take this course and that would help you and take you to the next level. So that's something else I'm doing. There is something percolating and brewing right now, and I have not told anyone, Kevin, so I'm not putting it out there yet.
Oh
But
no!
it's
Give
something
us the sneak
big.
peek.
It's something big, and I never thought I'd do it. And all of a sudden, one day I'm sitting here, and it's like you got to do this. So there is something, a little something
Just a
I don't know,
teaser.
a teaser. But there is something big happening. But basically, in a nutshell, I'm just taking my business to the next evolution, and I'm really excited about that.
Well, we're excited to hear about that whenever you're willing to let us know.
Yeah.
Uh, I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of circling back to where we were at before, but in your story, like you said, you had a lot of those pivotal moments in there. But I was curious, um, when did your mindset shift? Obviously, there was the moment with your son, and there's a moment with the executive. But one of the things that they talk about in personal growth is having a faith that you can grow, having a faith that you can learn, and then you can take a step forward. And it sounds to me like that was something you hadn't even considered at some point, and then somewhere along the way, you said, "Yes, I can." Was that because of the work environment? Was that because of something else?
So I'm an observer, and when I worked at the bank, one of the things I did is I observed people and how they conduct themselves. And I noticed I was different from everyone there. My head was always down. I keep quiet. I also noticed that I was being taken advantage of because I wasn't speaking up. I wasn't going anywhere. And I observed the people that were powerful, and I start talking to them. How did you get there? So I started paying attention and talking to people. And that was the first time I realized, oh my gosh, okay, if I want to be different, I want to be better than who I am today, these are the steps I need to take. And that was the first one was eye contact. Then I realized I need to speak up for myself and I need to learn how to speak up, not emotionally, but constructively. And so I started reading books. I would lie and I would go to school. I was told I wasn't allowed to go back to school. I would lie and start taking courses to educate myself. And that's when I start building my resiliency and my building blocks towards being a better person. I did it through lying, but it was for a good cause. Going back to school and learning how to, for example, I didn't know how to use the computer. It was something I needed to learn how to do. That was build a building block towards my resiliency and the next step in my career and where I wanted to go. So I knew I wanted more, and I didn't just sit there and wait for somebody to bring it to me. I did whatever I needed to do to get more and move forward. And I've been doing that ever since. You know, a couple of people, people watch me online, but I've had somebody reach out and said, I've been watching you for the past 12 years. And the thing I saw that you did, Sally, was that you never stopped. When you said you were going to do something, you just keep going and you just keep going and just keep going. And I mentioned, Kevin, before the compound effect. It is
Hmm.
so freaking powerful because compound effect is little and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. We don't see it when you first want to lose weight. It's a half a pound. Then continually, gradually, and before you know it, you've lost all that weight you want to. But it could take a whole year. And
Right.
building your mindset and changing those neural pathways and creating new neural pathways is so important. And this is how what I teach my clients also. Because I'm like, we've had one neural pathway we've been operating in, and mine was no, you're dumb, you're stupid, you'll never amount to anything. Right? And everything along that line. That was my neural pathway. And if I wanted to change that, I needed to tell myself new things and create new neural pathways and filled my mind with new things and empowering things and things Sally can do. But not only fill it, taking the action is the next step to that.
Where
That's
did
another
you,
part.
where did you, books that you've read, people you've listened to, who has been the most impactful on that journey in terms of your personal, professional growth?
So my first leadership book that I picked up was the 21, what was it? 21 indispensable laws of leadership by John Maxwell.
Ah,
And
yeah,
it
that's a good one.
blew my mind. It blew my mind when I read it. And that year I had said, you know what? I am going to read 21 books that year. And I did. I started reading all of his books and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do this. That year also I went and got certified to be a coach because I was so on fire. I went and I got certified to be a John Maxwell coach.
Oh, really?
So, oh yeah, I go all the way. I go all the way. That year I started my business also. I got my business license and I started my business. Mind you, it was a hobby for years, but I did all of the things that I felt I needed to do for when I'm ready to do what I'm doing now. When I look back, Kevin, it was lined up perfectly because when I had gotten my coaching certification, I wasn't ready, right? I wasn't educated enough and ready to coach people. It took me all these years, and I look back at the time in 2020 when I started, that's when I was ready.
Mm.
So you got to look back and be honest with yourself also to say you've got to, because I got so much experience. I got to sit in the C-suite with executives and got inside their head and got to know who they are and how they operate, and that was so instrumental towards what I do now and how I help people. Because when they're asking, well, how do I deal with my executives or how do I do this and how do I do that? I'm able to help them through that because I've lived it and experienced it.
you, the idea, and I think this is something I wrestle with today, and maybe this is going to turn into a coaching session real quick, but one of the things I've been working on, business entrepreneurship and trying to grow myself for the last 15 years, and keep, day in and day out, I'm like, okay, when's my breakthrough going to happen? Where is it? I put in a lot of time, I put in a lot of energy and sacrifices. It's like, there's days where I'm like, I wonder, am I missing something? Is that compound effect ever going to yield? Did you ever feel that way? And what's your
Um,
advice for me?
yeah, I felt that way when my goal was not clear
Mm,
because you will miss every target you can't see. So if your goal is really clear, then you're able to work towards it. Which in general, I was working towards all these years. I'm working towards being a coach, for example. But I don't know what type of coach I want to be. And I don't know what
mm,
that's going to look like. And I don't know what my demographic was going to be. When I sat down and I fleshed that out, Kevin, which is I think is very important to do. You have to go very micro with it because it's macro is I want to be a coach. Micro is starting asking all those questions. What type of coach do you want to be? What modalities do you want to cover? Who will be your target audience? Then you're ready and you know, okay, I can't miss that target because I know exactly what I'm rooting for. So I will challenge you to think about how micro you are or how macro you are with this goal or this breakthrough you're looking for. Because you have to know exactly what your North Star is in order to start working towards it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think for me, the macro and micro process has been a process, right? Where I think I'm specific, and then a couple months go by, and I realize I wasn't specific enough, and then I get more specific, and and so I don't know how to know when I'm specific enough, but I know that I understand what you mean by that.
I can tell you what when you know you get specific enough. When you are specific enough, you're able to break down that goal into bite size. Because when you're specific enough, the first thing you would say, I work backwards with my clients. I want to get here in 2 years. And then you have all the specifics and everything, right? You're very specific and you want to get there in 2 years. What do? You work backwards and you break it down. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Right.
So you break it down and you put milestones. You create a roadmap with milestones of where you want to go, where you want to be in 3, 6, 9, 12, whatever that looks like to you. And then you know, okay, now I know it's really specific because I know what I'm working towards and I have a roadmap to get me there. And make it realistic. I tell people, like, they would say, I want to do this in a month. I'm like, that's not realistic. I'm not telling you you can't do it. I'm telling you you're going to be discouraged if you don't do it. And it's okay to give yourself some more time. If you accomplish before then, fine, but give yourself 3 months to do this. So think about it from that perspective. And if you need to give yourself a year, 2 years, then do that because you know you have enough time to work towards what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you've probably you've worked with tons of different people at the C-suite level, and I think for many people, when we look at the C-suite, we think these are the guys who've got it together, right? These are the guys who've figured it out. We know that that's not true, but maybe you can shed some light on what it is you see as a common challenge that they face.
Man, they face challenges like any other employee. But the key is what they do with that challenge and how quickly they bounce back from the challenges that come. You will find people in C-suite is that they're a risk taker and they're not afraid to make decisions. Right? You find some managers, for example, they have a hard time making decisions and they vacillate because they don't have the confidence to do it. Most of the people that make it to the C-suite, they have the confidence to do it. So it's not the challenges that come. Everybody faces challenges from top to bottom in a business. It's how you deal with those challenges and how quickly you deal with it. That's one. But two, you also surround yourself with people who are strong and you empower them. Because you have to know what your gaps are. Just because you're CEO, you don't know everything. So if you know your gaps and you're filling those gaps appropriately and you have those people around you and you empower them and you're actually listening to them and you're transparent to them, then that makes for a powerful team and makes for quicker decisions. And that makes for a very a team built on the foundation of trust, which I talk about a lot. When it's built on foundation of trust, that's where you go. But that comes with the confidence that this person have in themselves when it comes to the C-suite, that they empower their people. And when they empower their people, guess what? They become multipliers, right? They're multiplying good people, strong people, confident people, and people like themselves. Because you probably heard this saying before, it all starts from the top. Whatever you do up here is what the rest of the people are going to do down here.
Right.
So it depends on the person, Kevin, and how much confidence they have in themselves to empower other people and build that strong team.
And you would say a lot of them, they probably understand this at a high level as they're in an executive position. But it sounds to me like kind of solidifying that confidence and and figuring out those processes may be a key area that they grow into over time.
I think you can grow into that area. I've worked with executives who were extremely confident and who would stand up against what is right. And I'll give you that example. I love this woman. I worked with her. I'm going to say her name is Jane. And we worked at this company. And this executive I worked with him, and she was my supervisor. And he was a beast to work for. He was such a mean person. And you can tell when somebody's had a bad childhood, whatever it is, but he was not a nice person. And it got so bad that I went in her office and I quit after 3 months. And she said, "You're not going anywhere because you're the type of employee I want in my organization. I'm going to move you across the building where you don't work for him anymore. You're going to work for someone else, but you're not leaving because of him." And she stood up to him and she told him that. But then I've had the flip side where I've had other executives who does not have the courage to do that.
Mm.
And they tolerate bad behavior. I worked at another company where they tolerated bad behavior, and I quit 3 months later because I don't have to put up with that. There are many jobs out there. So there are all sorts of people, and you will encounter all sorts of of people, and they have, whether it's their background or whatever it is, the reason they are the way they are. Can they change? Yes, but you need somebody who's going to be super transparent with them and let them know that what they're doing is not okay. This company I was working for, they tolerate the bad behavior. They'd be like, "Oh, that's just how he is. That's how he talks to people, and it's okay." Guess what? He'll never change because no one's
Yeah.
holding their feet to the fire to change. And that's the biggest thing in an organization, that leadership has to hold each other accountable and hold their feet to the fire. Like, you treat people like human beings. You don't treat them like they don't have value.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you made the comment that that mean person probably didn't have a great childhood, but obviously, that's only part of a story for anybody's story at the end of the day. And so when we look at people who are wrestling with stuff, we all have demons, whether it's anger issues, whether it's disorganization, lack of confidence. In your experience, and you personally are a very confident or confident now, but you're a very people person. We talked about this before. You love people. You've always loved people. That's been one of your core strengths. And you've leveraged that so well throughout your career. But I think there are people who get stuck and they don't think that they can grow. They look at their weaknesses. They look at some of the things that they just aren't good at, and they say, "Well, because of this, I'm never going to make it."
Yeah.
Can you talk to that? Talk to those
Um,
people.
yeah, I think there is no reason on earth why you need to get stuck where you're at. But people get stuck because, no, while you have to stay where you're at. You can get stuck, but there's no reason why you have to stay there. Because I think it's important, if you are open to listening and you're open for growth and you're open to receiving, people are going to pour into you. But some
Mm,
people are so closed off because they are so caught up in their traumas of the past that they're not able to receive truth. It's so hard. And you and I know we're in a healthy place, but even then, it's hard to receive constructive feedback, right? I receive it and that hurts, but I still receive it because I want to grow.
right.
But some people never get past that where they can receive that constructive feedback. Um, and if you can't get past where you're going to be open minded, you know how you see some people have a one track mind. They're not open minded. They're not open to receiving feedback. Then they will never grow, right? They will never grow. That's the number one thing. If you don't want to be open to receive feedback, you're not going to grow. And the way you have to do that is start asking for it, and it's going to be hard. But like a muscle, it's going to build up, and you eventually. I'm a feedback junkie now. I'm like, tell me what I did wrong.
Yeah.
Tell me how I can improve because I want to be better. I'm in that place where I'm hungry to learn and grow and to be better and not to be the smartest person in the room. That's the second part where people like to be the smartest person in the room. I don't have that complex. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to learn and grow from people. Um, and then the other one, environments have a lot to do with that, right? And it's a pride thing because I am this executive. It's a pride thing. No one tells me what to do. I know what I'm doing. There is that
Mm.
too, so they don't listen, and they can overcome that pride. But I've worked with wonderful executives who say like I've had executives come to me and say, Sally, how did we do at that town hall? What can we improve at that town hall? And it's great to have people like that. But you're gonna have all types. Kevin, it takes all types of people to make the world cool. You have to decide at the end of the day who you want to surround yourself with. You have a
Yeah.
choice.
I think about the people who are stuck, and I think about what they tend to surround themselves with, and it tends to be other stuck things, right? It tends to be other things that there's so much that piles up on a person who gets stuck, whether it's health issues. You mentioned your focus on exercise and breaking free. When we had our earlier conversation, you were very regimented with when you were eating and what you were eating at the time. And I know that your health has always been, well, not always, but is a strong focus for you today. And so how do you start to peel away some of those things that people are stuck in?
Um, Helping them get unstuck. You are absolutely right. You are the sum of the five people you hang out with.
Mm,
So you need to look around first and see if they add value to you. Do they add value? You know when you're ready to grow and change. And when you're ready to grow and change, you know the crab in the bucket analogy? Those people are going to bring you down when you are elevating, when you're ready to grow and change. So you got to think of, I need new people in my life. That's the one thing. If I want to eat right, I want to work out, I want to grow, I want to get in a growth mindset, I need to find people who are in a growth mindset and who want to work with it. And I may have to drop some of these friends. And you have
yeah.
to be willing to do that. And that's going to be the hardest thing. So look at your surrounding. I would say if you're feeling stuck, look at your surrounding. Social media is a big deal. What are you watching on social media?
Mm,
Right? What you put in here is what your input would be your output. So what are you putting in your head? Is it negativity? Are you going to look at positive things? Where do you want to grow? You have to identify, and those are the things you need to go look at. And
mm,
three, I would say you are absolutely right when it comes to your mental and physical health is tied to what you eat. What you put in your body is how it's going to perform, right? When you're changing your oil, you want to put the best oil in your car. I always think of my body as a vehicle, and it always gets me to reset. Oh my gosh, I put premium oil, premium gas in my car. So what do I put in my body, right? If you want your body to operate that way, you have to put premium foods in your body in order for it to operate. So all that factor plays into when you want to change your mindset, when you want to grow, when you want to grow, and when you're ready for it. You have to look at all those things. Um, and if you are, I have had a client just 2 days ago who kept saying, I'm a negative person and I can't think positive. I'm a negative person.
yes.
My parents were negative. Everybody was negative. And I'm like, but you can. We've been told no's approximately 35,000 times from birth to 18 years old.
Yep. Yep. Don't touch the stove.
35,000 times, right? And yes, you've been told positive in a positive light, things in positive light 5,000 times. So
Mm,
I understand your growth and your upbringing have a lot to do with that, but you have a choice. You can say, and I taught her some tricks. Here's what I said. You have to start talking to yourself and rethink stuff, for example.
mm,
Because when someone at work sends you an email and you are saying that this email, you're reading it as in bad intention. Like, oh,
yeah.
they think I'm an idiot because I don't know this thing. I said, you have a choice how you're going to receive that email. And
Yeah.
for me, I've trained myself not to receive that email, giving that person the benefit of the doubt. Okay, they're just trying to help me. They don't think I'm an idiot. They just try to help me. And I look at it from the light I want to because I have that power. This is where you take your power back from people also, Kevin.
Yeah.
How you look at things is where you take your power back from people. You have a choice how you look at it. And I choose to look at it like I don't give you any power. I choose to look at it as, okay, you're trying to help me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh,
And if
what's
you
that
keep training your
equation?
brain to do that, it's saying, oh my gosh, I'm coming out of that broken record where I'm always going negative, and you're playing a new song now. It's a beautiful song, sunshine and rainbows. You're playing new songs, and your brain starts to learn how to think in a positive light instead of a
Hmm.
negative light.
Yeah,
Kevin, it's a lot of work though.
yeah. One of the equations that I remember, and I don't remember which book it was, but was that the outcome of any situation is not just the event that happens to you, but your specific response, and you have all the control in the world over that response. So,
That's right.
what is the outcome that you want? And do you want to fight? Do you want an uphill battle? Do you want conflict? Or do you want growth and resolution?
Totally. That's the only thing you can control is how you respond to a situation that's happening.
I love that. And I'll say another thing on that one from my personal experience. And I did a podcast with a young man who's helping college students do podcasts. And we were talking about the difference between morning people and night people. And I said, he said, not he, but people have said to me, I can't do this. I'm a night person. I'm not a morning person. I can't wake up early in the mornings. And I remember that was my feeling as a kid and in school, all the way up through midway through college. Like I'd stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning and not necessarily doing anything useful. Sometimes studying late, right? But and then overnight, it was like a transformation. It was like, okay, I'm going to be a morning person, and I did. And so I think we all have in our minds that we are this way. This is who we are and what our identity is. But if we can peel that back, like you're saying, and say, I want a different outcome. I want a better result. I'm sure there's other examples you've seen of that, but that's one that I went through.
No, that is so true. You have to operate in who you are. I think a lot of times we try to emulate other people, and that's where we get into problems. I always tell people, you want to be a better version of you, Kevin. For the longest while, not knowing myself, and I'm glad I went through this. Every woman I see, oh, she's so soft spoken. Oh, she's so this, and she's so beautiful, and she speaks so eloquently, or whatever it is. I've
Mm,
done that a lot for a lot of years and many years before I realized, man, but what about you?
mm,
You haven't looked at you and see what you like about you. So
yes.
that's the part you look at you and what you like about you. Just because I get up at 6 a.m. doesn't mean that's your peak time. Your peak time
Right.
probably starts at the end of the day. And we shame people by saying, so if you want to be successful, you have to get up at 5 a.m. I don't subscribe to that.
Mm,
People need to operate when they have the energy. I was writing at 2 a.m. That's when all my inspiration came. And that's when I learned, like, I didn't need to get up at 4 or 5 a.m. to write. I was a 2 a.m. person, 2 to 6 a.m., and then I would sleep later and get up later. So everybody needs to operate in how when they have their best energy and when they want to, and we just need to stop shaming people if they don't get up at 5 a.m.
yeah, I think that's a great point. I wasn't hoping to shame anybody who wasn't waking up early, but I think that we often paint ourselves into a corner in terms of our limitations, feeling like we are stuck with who we are and some the traits that we don't like about ourselves, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's a balance. We have to find who we are and love ourselves for what our strengths are, but um, not believe that we can't get better at the same time, right?
yeah. Always, you can always do anything you set your mind to, but operate in already who you are. Just make it better, right? Don't try to be like Kevin, or don't try to be like Sally, or don't try to be like Ed Miletz and John Maxwell.
Mm,
But be a better version of who you are. You have your skills and your talents, and grow those. It's harder to try to grow something or be something you're not. Just know who you are. I just made a video on this. If you know who you are, and you know what
yeah.
you like, and you know where you're going, that's really powerful.
Do you help? There's a lot of books that I've come across that help people not know who they are, but there's personality tests and strength finders and things like that. Do you subscribe to any of those in terms of digging deeper into your personal traits?
Yeah. So there is, I like Enneagram, for anybody who wants to really know their personality and who they are. That's one I really like. If you are in the work environment, I like DISC. I'm a DISC consultant. I like the DISC profile, but those actually tell you like who you are and how you operate. For example, the DISC profile tells you there's four quadrants, right? DISC, and I am an IS. So the I's are the people who are bubbly and they're outgoing, and the S are the steady eddies, like you know what you're gonna get from me. I'm pretty predictable and all of that. I'm reliable.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're dealing with this, and I'm not detail oriented, right? You deal with the C person. They're so detailed that when they send me an email, I want to cry because there's so much details in it.
Yeah.
And then you deal with a D person. When I walk into the office, I need to understand that that D person doesn't care about my dogs and my cat. They want me to get to the point, right? Most C levels are D people, get to the point. They can work towards where they have some empathy and say, okay, I can listen like 1 minute about your cat or your dog, Indy, but they want you to get to the point. So it's really great to do those personality tests to understand yourself when if you're in a group environment or you're working with a team, because when you understand people's personalities, like, okay, I understand why he gets frustrated when I write him a letter as opposed to give him 4 bullet points. So
Mm.
I think it's great doing a couple of those personality tests to know who you are, and then there's a spirituality test to tell you what your gifts are. Um,
Mm. The
yeah,
love languages.
the love languages, the 5 love languages. Also, Gary Chapman, I think, the 5 love languages are important. Understanding those things, but those are a couple of things people can do to understand their personality and who they are and what makes them tick, and also how to work with different personalities. I like to add that because not just knowing who you are, but understanding the people around you, why they behave the way they behave, so you don't try to change them to be like you, or they don't try to change you to be like them.
Yeah, yeah. I can second that. I'm at a stage in my life where um, I remember when I was 23 years old, I reached a moment where I was happy with myself. It was a critical moment for me. It was like I remember looking in the mirror and I was like, yeah, I like this guy. And before that, I was kind of wandering in the field of I like what this person does, I like what that person does. I wish I was better like this person, and that mindset. And then I say this because I don't know how much our stages of life impact our ability to understand others and our ability to understand ourselves. Because at 23, I was able to finally accept my, like, enjoy, appreciate the person in the mirror. And then later on, I'm at a point where I can start to understand myself, my weaknesses. And actually, a lot of things like, oh, wow, this is why I sucked at this when I was young, or this is why I was not good at that when I was younger. And I still feel like I'm not quite at the cusp of applying that to others. Like logically, I understand certain people are technical and certain people are straightforward, but I've read it all. I've consumed all the information, but I haven't been able to internalize it to the point where I can look at you and say, yeah, I need to address you in a different way than somebody else. Is that a
Yeah.
life stage? Is that a capability? How does that play out?
I think one, it comes with experience, but two, it also comes with actually talking to people and asking the right questions. I think one of the things we don't do enough is listen to each other, because as soon as we meet somebody, our bias, we have an unconscious bias that forms an opinion of that person, a judgment of them. And we have
Mm.
to think about, okay, I form a judgment based on your tattoo, or I form a judgment based on your suit or your shorts or whatever you're wearing. When I look at you, I form a judgment. My brain already made a judgment on you. And we have to be aware of that judgment. It's called the unconscious bias. Secondly, we ask questions. We have so much division in this country because one of the things we don't do is listen to each other. We all talk, but nobody listens. What's that song? Everybody's talking, but no one's listening. We all talk, but nobody's listening. Just listen to people and respect what they're saying. They doesn't have to align or agree with what you're saying. Respect goes such a long way. Just listen to people and be like, oh, and be more curious. Right?
Mm,
A lot of time we want to be interesting instead of interested in people. And I
mm,
think if we're more interested in people, we'll learn a lot about who they are by asking questions, listening to them, and then we don't always have to give our opinions. I understand where you're coming from, totally get it. That's fine. You don't need to know my opinion and who I are, what's my political belief, or whatever my belief is. I don't necessarily need to impose that on you if I want to get to know who you are. So it's a skill. It really takes a skill.
mm.
It's the introvert versus the extrovert, right? Um, I those questions just flow naturally from me, from experience being a coach and stuff like that. But even an introvert can learn that. Learn just
Mm.
be interested in people. That's
I I can't imagine how many times I've heard that and wanted to internalize that more too. I always feel, it's the saying, the most interesting person in the room is the one who listens the most.
oh yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, you will see when a bunch of executives sitting around the table, the smartest person will ask the question last, and the question he asks, everybody sits up and they listen to him when he
Hmm.
speaks. The person who speaks a lot, everybody knows, okay, she's always going to say something or he's always going to say something. But when that one person speaks, everybody sit up and they listen, right? That's my husband. He doesn't talk a lot. That's me, and I talk all day long. I love
That's great. Well, I know we're coming up at an hour on here,
that.
and
Oh
I
wow.
I think we've covered so much ground in here. Is there anything else you'd like to share or talk about?
Um, are we doing a closing?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
I just, I
I'd
want,
like to close with this. So I, I am the mindset coach, and I believe that if you change your mindset, you can change your life. I believe you have to be willing to do it, and it takes a lot of hard work, but it's not hard to do. It's a constant effort, and I will say it again that works with the compound effect, day in and day out. You can change negative to positive. You can change being insecure from being a secure person. You can change not having confidence to building self confidence. You can change feeling like an imposter and understand even C levels feel like an imposter to being this person who's comfortable in your skin and who you are and not compare yourself to other people. You can get out of the comparison trap by loving who you are and being there for you. Mindset is so important when it comes to changing the way you think, the way you feel, because the way you think is the way you will act. And we
mm,
need to just know that our thinking drives our behavior. And if we can change that to be positive, how powerful that will be. So, mindset coach here, if you're ready, I am.
that's incredibly well said. And Sally has her book on Amazon, Triumph Over Failure and Fear.
Over failure and fear.
And and she's got her website. I think it's sallyallencoaching.com.
Sally, SallyAllenCoaching.com. And if you want to reach me, Sally at SallyAllenCoaching.com.
Excellent. And it looks like my connection may have wiggled her out, but
Yeah, I thought I heard what you said, though. So,
good. Well, thank you so much, Sally, for sharing your story, for giving me a coaching session, and for sharing what that mindset journey has been for you and what you believe it can be for others. I think this was excellent.
thanks, Kevin. It's been a pleasure and it's been an honor to be here and to be interviewed by you. You're an excellent interviewer.
Thank you, Sally. We'll talk soon.